narinig nyo na siguro yung Delta plus variant na sinasabi nila, naka-acquire po yun ng isang panibagong mutation from these other mutations, yung K417N mutation, also in the spike protein. Pero according to the Indian news po, ay marami pa po silang kailangang aralin upang makapagbigay ng more information about the Delta plus variant.
That was Dr. Eva de la Paz of the UP Genome Center talking about a new mutation of the more transmissible variant first reported in India, the Delta Plus variant.
22 cases of Delta Plus have already been reported in India. And while data is limited, it is believed to easily affect kids and cause hospitalization. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. Let's start tonight following reports of a more transmissible Delta COVID-19 variant surfacing in India.
Health experts call on the government to enforce stricter border controls to prevent its entry. Jen Kalimon has The Big Story.
A new mutation of a more transmissible Delta COVID-19 variant has recently surfaced in India. 22 cases of Delta Plus variant have been reported in 3 states in India. Data is still limited on the Delta Plus, but the Delta variant by itself already poses more dangers.
Yung Delta plus variant na sinasabi nila, naka-acquire po yun ng isang panibagong mutation, yung K417N mutation, also in the spike protein. Marami pa po silang kailangang aralin upang makapagbigay ng more information.
In a study conducted by the Imperial College in Australia, the Delta variant could infect 6 to 8 people, 3 or 4 times the original virus. It may easily affect the younger population and could show other kinds of symptoms.
Ang Delta variant mas madaling kumapit sa airway ng yung receptors nung sa lungs natin. Possible din talaga na mas madali siyang kumapit sa mga bata, halos walang ubo daw, no? Mas likely na ma-ignore ng mga pasyente lalo na kung very mild yung symptoms.
17 cases of the Delta variant have been reported in the country. Aside from Delta, the DOH has been monitoring 3 other variants of concern, the Alpha, Beta, and Theta variants. Like the other variants, experts believe that severe symptoms from the Delta variant may be prevented if a person has received a full dosage of a COVID-19 vaccine.
A second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine boosted protection against Delta to 60%, while 2 doses of Pfizer were 88% effective. Ulitin namin na importante pa rin pong magpabakuna kasi yan pa rin po ang ating malaking pangdepensa kung anuman pong variant ang mayroon.
The DOH also believes that implementing a strict border control can prohibit the entry of other variants in the country.
Sa ngayon talaga na ang mga numero natin ay pataas pa, kailangan nating protektahan ng ating bansa na wala munang makakapasok na dagdag na variants of concern.
Reporting for News 5, Jen Kalimon, We Are One News.
To further discuss this emerging new variant from India, we have with us Dr. Carl Henson from the Philippine Society for Microbiology and Infectious Diseases. Dr. Henson, welcome to The Big Story.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me.
Maybe, Paul, let's start by, maybe you could expound on what we've heard so far from the news. What do we know and what do we not know at this point about this Delta Plus variant?
Oh, you're talking about Delta Plus. I think there needs to be a differentiation there, no? So the big thing now, the variant of concern that we're talking about and we're worried about is not Delta Plus, but Delta variant. Delta variant is the predominant variant of SARS-CoV-2 in the UK now, and it's emerging as a problem in the United States. The Delta Plus variant, if that's what you're asking about, there's, like Dr. Cutionco de la Paz said, there's an additional mutation, and it seems to be making the virus more transmissible. But also, like she said, we don't really know a lot about the Delta Plus variant at this time. It seems to be limited to India. And from what we know, it emerged just because there were so many cases there. No? I think that's a very important point to make. Variants will emerge if there are a lot of cases. So the solution is really to try and bring down the number of cases. So we don't really know a lot about the Delta Plus variant yet.
Now, in the meantime, all of these variants, particularly with Delta and now the Delta Plus, is reigniting conversations about restricting travel into the country. What is the wise thing to do and to consider there?
I do not presume to know about the wise thing to do. I recognize that that is a very, very complex decision-making process. There is diplomacy involved, there is politics involved, but talking about just health, no, and the scientific issues, the less that we welcome into our borders, the better, no? Because right now, all we know, from what we know, the Delta variants that we have in the Philippines, they have all been imported. That means they have infected the virus infected Filipinos. These Filipinos arrived on our shores. They were quarantined, and that's how we found out that they had the Delta variant. So as far as we know at this time, there is no community transmission yet of the Delta variant. So if you're asking me about just the health part, then blocking off any entry is the best way to go. But we also need to recognize that that decision, no, to close the borders comes with much more implications. No? So right now, I think that DOH is doing a good job. Border control, meaning the quarantine system is working so far. All as we said, the Delta variants that have been caught, they were able to complete quarantine and they got better. The last I know, there's only one person who remains in the hospital. So good border control, I think, is at least at this time, the best way to go.
Okay, Dr. Carl Henson of the Philippine Society for Microbiology and Infectious Diseases, maraming salamat po. The Delta variant's transmission rate nearly triples that of the original strain. That's according to a study conducted by the Imperial College in Australia. Tonight's big number is 8. Those infected with the Delta variant can infect as much as 8 people. An individual carrying the original strain can infect up to 3 others. If it's the Alpha variant, 5 persons are at risk.
These are the other big stories tonight. Metro Manila has been downgraded to a low-risk area as COVID cases continue to decline. Virus growth rate has dropped by 23% in the past 2 weeks. The Nationalist People's Coalition sees a 3-way fight for the presidency in 2022, with the party sitting at the center as an alternative. And creating some momentum before the Olympic qualifiers, Gilas Pilipinas tied China in a tune-up game. These big stories after the break.
Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching The Big Story. The Bicol Medical Center in Naga is getting overwhelmed after a surge of cases in the city since last month. Our correspondent Romel Lopez is on the ground to give us updates. Romel, how are the staff of Bicol Medical Center doing?
Yes, Robbie, medical frontliners here have one word for the situation. In local parlance, toxic. Local doctors are now demanding for the reimposition of ECQ in an effort to lessen the infections. A drove of COVID patients were rushed to the Bicol Medical Center in Naga early Wednesday. The BMC is the city's main COVID hub, but most of its workers can only do so much about the influx. Nurses like Benigno are stuck between attending to intubate patients and giving others ambu-bags.
We are surpassing the usual in the normal consultation and iba pa yung mga COVID suspect, COVID positive na dumating sa amin.
The BMC said 81 of 140 COVID beds are already occupied. They have also doubled their ICU beds from 11 to 22. All of its 25 ICU ventilators are functioning. But with not much elbow room for now, COVID patients and regulars have to be separated by a mere tape.
Umabot din sa point na umabot ng 3 to 5 days bago sila may pasok na sa COVID ward. So,
they ensure that no residents are loitering, especially in the weekends under quarantine. Tessie is...
Pero po talaga ganitong lockdown. Maraming hindi magawa sa labas.
Naga government said the surge started last May when they tallied over 2,400 cases. At least 280 cases remain active.
Naga has also the highest attack rate in Bicol at 623.14 per 100,000 population.
This translates to a daily average of 25 cases. The LGU is now demanding for more vaccine allocation.
Dahil nga na-focus ng national government yung kanilang vaccination doon sa NCR Plus. So doon halos kasi na ibagsak eh. Kaya hindi lang Naga, kundi halos lahat ng mga probinsya may problema talaga sa bakunang ibinababa.
Today, the 170,000 population Naga has only administered 7,000 doses. Robbie, while the Bicol Medical Center is overwhelmed, it says that all patients, COVID or not, are being accommodated. As mentioned, the LGU is asking the national government for more vaccines. Robbie.
Maraming salamat, Romel Lopez.
Quezon City is leading Metro Manila's vaccination drive with over 600,000 doses administered. QC officials say it's a matter of finding which strategy works for a particular LGU. Patricia Mangune has a report.
Overcrowding has not been an issue for Quezon City's vaccination program. With a strict online appointment policy, residents like actress Meryl Soriano got their shots hassle-free.
Napakabilis. Even yung first dose, mabilis din. So very organized naman dito. So we're very happy.
For those without internet access, QC also has a barangay-assisted registration. This benefited senior citizens like Alicia Datuin.
Yung online, alam mo, yung mga younger generation, kayang-kaya, pagkagaya naming senior. Medyo computer illiterate yung iba. Lalo na kami.
Walk-in Quezon City residents are instead put in a substitution list. Those in the list replace those who canceled their appointment.
Kasi minsan pagka hindi mo nakakadating ang mga sa online or na-defer, we have a substitution list pero dapat nasa same category po.
So far, Quezon City leads the vaccination race with the highest inoculation turnout. It had administered 42,000 doses on Tuesday, a record high for a single day. They are also the first LGU to have vaccinated more than 500,000 recipients with the first dose, while 161,000 have been fully inoculated with a second dose. The Quezon City LGU says they are not competing with other LGUs.
Mataas ang interest at the moment ng mga citizens ng Quezon City na mabakunahan, no? So, obviously, yung walk-in at the moment in Quezon City, hindi muna namin kaya kasi baka mamayang konti makompromise naman yung mga minimum health standards.
And true enough, In the city of Manila, the walk-in system proves to be more effective. They reached a city best on Tuesday of 35,572 doses administered in one day. In Mandaluyong City, those who secured online appointments get Pfizer vaccines, while walk-ins get Sinovac. They have more than 178,000 doses administered to date. In Caloocan City, over 322,000 have already received their first and second dose, while in Navotas, more than 80,000 are already vaccinated. For News 5, Patricia Mangune. We are One News.
Time for an express look at some of the day's big stories. The Health Department has now classified Metro Manila as a low-risk area following the downtrend in COVID-19 cases. DOH's Epidemiology Bureau said the number of cases in the capital slid 23% over the past 2 weeks. The average daily attack rate in NCR, meanwhile, dropped to 5.7 from 7.4 in preparation for the 2022 elections. He says Facebook should only allow one account per person. This will help prevent the creation of multiple accounts that only create libelous posts. And recent satellite data shows that over 100 ships that are likely from China have moved into the country's exclusive economic zone since May. US-based Similarity says this brings the total of Chinese ships in the country's territory to almost 240. It noted that vessels at the Union Banks, where the Julian Felipe Reef is located, increased from 9 to 236. And now for the big story in sports, Gilas Pilipinas has wrapped up its Clark bubble stint following a draw with China in its tune-up game. It was another impressive game for Gilas with a 79-79 draw. The team led for most of the match, even without Carl Tamayo and Dwight Ramos, who are both nursing injuries. The young squad was up by 3 points during the dying seconds of the game, but China came through with a free throw and a tip-in at the buzzer. Gilas is set to fly out tomorrow for the FIBA Olympic qualifying tournament in Belgrade, Serbia. Time for another quick break. When we return, the battle for the presidency is shaping up to be a three-way fight. That's according to the Nationalist People's Coalition. And 2 more Pinoy athletes made it to the Olympics. But with one of them testing positive for COVID, does it diminish her chances of joining the Summer Games? The details after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. The Nationalist People's Coalition says it will serve as an alternative to administration and opposition bets in the 2022 polls. Lakas CMD, meanwhile, is eyeing to form a multi-party coalition to support the presidential bid of Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte. Arian Kalumbiran with the details.
There are now 6 names being floated for a possible presidential bid in 2022. Sara Duterte, Isko Moreno, Senators Ping Lacson and Manny Pacquiao, Bongbong Marcos, and Vice President Leni Robredo. But for Nationalist People's Coalition Chairman and Senate President Tito Sotto, the elections will boil down to a 3-way fight. 1 bet each for the administration and the opposition, and NPC as the alternative.
Kami yung neutral. We are in alliance with the President. We have no coalition, we have no alliance with any other political party.
Sotto has been open about his plans to run for vice president should Lacson run for president. But with the Liberal Party considering Lacson as a probable standard-bearer, does that put in limbo Sotto's ambitions next year? The Senate President tells One News the Chiefs everything is still fluid.
If it rests on the decision of Senator Lacson, because we've always focused on our tandem together and the programs that we want to do.
But what about the probability of NPC adopting Senator Manny Pacquiao, who is currently embroiled in a rift with ruling party PDP Laban? Just recently, one of Pacquiao's closest allies, Chavit Singson, joined NPC.
Na makakala nila parang opening lang si Chavit. But really, very bluntly, we never discussed Manny Pacquiao.
On 1PH Swag po, political analyst Dindo Manhit said the chances of Pacquiao running under PDP Laban are getting dim.
So maaaring pupuporma siya bilang vice president. At yun nga lang, what does he bring to the ticket? He did not really perform well as a senator. He was not active in any debate. He was not clear in his political stand. So maybe this is just pure political ambition and desire.
But while things are looking bleak for Pacquiao under PDP Laban, Sara Duterte's hugpo ng pagbabago got another vote of confidence from Lakas CMD. The party has renewed its alliance with hugpo. House Majority Floor Leader Martin Romualdez urged other parties to join them for a multi-party coalition.
Kahulugan lang naman ng ating alyansa dito ay to work together para ituloy natin yung programa ng ating mga Pangulo in furtherance to the battle against the pandemic.
Romualdez has yet to decide if he'll run for vice president despite already getting the president's backing. In a statement, Mayor Sara said she's grateful for Lakas CMD's support if she ever decides to run for president. Arian Kalumbiran, we are One News.
Let's take a look at the biggest stories on print and online. The Education Department is looking at 3 possible dates for this year's school opening. Philippine Star reports that DepEd laid down either August 3, September 6, or September 13 as the start of the academic year 2021 to 2022. This will be submitted to President Duterte for final approval. The city of Manila just got more expensive for expatriates. That's according to Mercer's 2021 Cost of Living Survey. Manila City tied with Mumbai, India at 78th place out of 209 cities with expensive living requirements. This is 2 spots higher from its ranking last year. And from News 5, the 16-year-old boy who was shot in an anti-drug operation in Binyan, Laguna tested positive in his paraffin test. Authorities say this might mean that John D. Naglinte and Antonio Dalit exchanged shots with police personnel. Autopsy reports showed that the two had 4 gunshot wounds each.
In world news, jailed Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai's Next Digital announced that its Apple daily newspaper will come to an end no later than Saturday. This comes after 500 Hong Kong police raided the pro-democracy tabloid's office, sifting through computers and notebooks. This is the first case in Hong Kong where authorities cited media articles as potentially violating the national security law. Apple Daily's last print edition will be published tomorrow.
Another big story in sports. Former UP star Juan Gomez de Llano has signed with Japan B-League Division 2 team Earth Friends Tokyo Z. De Llano is the 3rd Pinoy player to join a team in Japan's Premier League, following siblings Sturdy and Kiefer Ravena. The 22-year-old last saw action for Gilas Filipinas in the FIBA Asia Cup qualifiers, averaging 12 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. De Llano will be looking to inject some life into his new team after a 13-46 win-loss record last season. And some good news, judoka Kiyomi Watanabe and sprinter Christina Knott have officially clinched their slot to the Tokyo Games, increasing the country's delegates to 15. Watanabe qualified via continental quota in the women's 63-kilogram class. Not, meanwhile, was one of the 4 who secured a spot in the women's 200-meter run via the universality rule. But following her inclusion, Not also just found out that she tested positive for COVID-19, forcing her to miss her 2 scheduled events before the Olympics.
With the smooth like butter success of the BTS meal, some netizens have taken inspiration and made their own stand bundles. Here's for the popsters a Sarah G meal with a tala-shaped nuggets, ikot-ikot fries, and Coke Sarah. Creator Irvin Christian said it's free delivery kahit abutin pa ng kilometrong layo. As for Regine Velasquez stands, the Songbird meal is for you. It features the crispy wings of love, available araw-gabi. And the Ben and Ben meal is also available for the Liwanag fandom. The packaging is in deep blue, an homage to their album, Limasiwa Street. And for sex bomb lovers, mapapaget-get-aw kayo dito, the Chicken Bucket Papa, complete with halukay ube pie and Daisy 7 tumblers.
Napaka-creative talaga ng mga Pinoy. May naisip ako.
Dapat may Gretchen Ho meal, may kasamang bisikleta.
Ganun.
Libre na yung bisikleta. Pag deliver sa'yo, iiwan yung bisikleta.
Libre lang yung bisikleta.
Oo,
ganun.
di ba?
Parang Happy Meal lang. May naisip ako maganda. Moira de la Torre.
Paano naman yun?
Ang title ng kanya, Ipaubaya mo na yan. Diba? Diba? Ibigay mo na yung pagkain sa iba.
Ibigay, pitch mo.
Sana
Like
kayo.
ko.
Okay. That wraps up today's Big Story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. We are One News. Have a good evening.
So, paano yun?
Let me know. I'll brasso something for you.
Hindi nga, ayoko nang binobraso.
Pero bakit ganun?
Ayoko nang binobraso. Di ba? I want my kids to do it the normal way, right? So she did, so kanina nag-online siya, and then sabi niya, July. Tapos nung nakita niya, September, puno na. So, okay, paano, I'm sure, paano di ba you're encouraging people to register tapos they couldn't get an appointment?
Kasi ang sinasabi namin,